Welcome back. It is Tuesday. That means Kevin Brockway and Chronic Hoosier. Chronic, how are you doing, brother?
Doing great, man. Glad to be back. Glad to have some games to talk about.
Lots of that action to do as, of course, Indiana basketball in action over the weekend. We've talked about the Bahamas. Didn't get to see that. I couldn't go. But the stats and all the reports that we have, it was a good weekend in a lot of ways. And a lot of things we're able to gain from that. Players, positions, and so it's a lot of positive that came out of that.
No, absolutely. You know, it's always nice to leave with a couple of dubs. Most importantly, for the most part, everybody left healthy. Sounds like a little bit of an ankle tweak for Miller Kopp, but other than that, it's always the big concern is the off season winds down and camp starts. Well, I guess basketball's not quite a camp yet, but they did get 2 weeks. But most importantly, they got most of the bodies available, and everybody that traveled with them is able to come back. Sounds like those that sat out are probably not going to be out too terribly long. So always encouraging, but most of all, I think it was just great to see reports, see news, and limited clips of a team that really seemed ready, willing, and able to get after it on both ends of the floor. And for most Indiana fans I've talked to over the last several years, issue number one is get them engaged in the game. Get that activity level up. And it seems like Coach Woodson and staff had no problem bringing a squad that was ready to play some dang basketball.
Yeah, and Kevin, you're one also didn't see it, but just going off of the stats, what did you gain from that weekend?
Yeah, no, I agree with Chronic. I think the biggest thing was the defense, or the fact that you played a more aggressive style, you turned the ball over. I mean, 13 steals in the first game. I think that's the main takeaway that I get from it, is the fact that this new defensive style, I think it's going to be something that Hoosier fans will embrace, because they want to see that effort on that end of the floor. They don't want to see you park in, kind of like a pack line of zone defense. They want to see that. They want to see you go out there and get after that. That kind of signifies effort, kind of a blue-collar mentality, and that's what Mike Woodson is going to bring to the program, which he obviously learned from Bob Knight in the 80s.
Yeah, and that's one thing that the team seemed to have been lacking. But it was good to see that the different faces, new faces, seem to blend with the old faces. Rob Finney, we talked about this with Todd Leary, and I talked about it yesterday. His role seems more defined and manageable for him. Guys seem to have roles that seem defined, even though we didn't even see it. You could look at stats and listen and gain that, man, guys seem to have their roles and they seem to be playing them. Something we haven't seen for a few years.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that stood out as you look at the stat line is there's a lot of talent on this roster, obviously, but most importantly, you see a roster that showed a lot of depth. Everybody got minutes, even some walk-ons down there, which isn't expected when you have double-digit wins on both nights. But getting contributions from the backcourt, from the front court, a team that shot, I believe, 39% from the floor overall, 34% from three-point line, 66, just a tick under 67% from the free throw line. Obviously, that's a little lower than where you want to see it. But for a team that has struggled mightily for years now to shoot the basketball, just demonstrating, early in the season, Woodson admitted there's really been an emphasis on the defense. Offense has been considerably lagging. But a team that's going to play wide open, it's going to get up and down the floor. And find an open man and knock down some shots. That was probably the one quote that stood out to me the most from the weekend. Woodson talking about what his offensive philosophies are going to be. And, he emphasizes unselfish basketball, how unfair it is not to pass to the open guy. He's earned that by getting open, get the ball to him, and let him take his shot. So it looked like a lot of guys were more than willing to take that opportunity upon themselves. And, it looks like we had a pretty balanced offense. Trace Jackson Davis averaged double figures, 16 on the weekend. Tamar Bates stepped up, averaging 11.5. Race Thompson with a solid 9-point average over the course of the weekend with 9 rebounds to boot. You look at those 3 right off the bat, and if you can get those types of contributions from at least 3 players consistently, history shows you're going to be in pretty good position if you can keep that up.
I think what was interesting was Chronic after the second game when Mike talked about the offense. He said, not to get them play like robots. So I still think there's a little bit of thinking going on instead of free flowing, but that's probably to be expected when you're learning a new offensive system.
Well, and how much of that goes back to Bob Knight's motion offense. It's designed to present choices, and obviously there's a premium on making the right choice. But when the ball's moving and the bodies are moving, guys are going to become open. You're going to have different opportunities. Which one makes the most sense for your team in that given moment? And I'm really, really excited to see how he implements some of those philosophies into the new offense. Because as we've seen before, this was an offense that you could tell they were programmed. We're going to get the ball down low, then we're going to try to kick it out, then we're going to try to get it back low. And it was so predictable. It was very robotic. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't take a little bit of additional time deprogramming some of that and putting the concepts in place where these guys are presented with some of those choices that he was speaking of.
And as we fall now, you got to wait till November 9th for their opening game, but that's okay because between then and now, you've got Indiana football to talk about.